centers, and a network coordinating office. To learn more, please visit our website. This series is designed to be a broad overview to assist in preparing for written alcohol and drug certification examinations, to enhance existing knowledge, and to improve overall competence and treatment outcomes. Please be aware that this series is not meant to stand alone, and previous education and training is necessary in order to pass alcohol and drug certification exams. Please check out our other upcoming webinars in this series, as well as our American Indian and Alaska Native Behavioral Health series, which takes place on the first Wednesday of each month. We always welcome suggestions of topics for speakers, so feel free to make suggestions either in the Q&A pod or by contacting Kate Trams at the email, address, or phone number provided on this slide. Down at the bottom. Our center is a NADAC-certified educational provider, and CEHs are available on request for a $15 fee. A request form is available for download in the Files pod in the webinar screen, and we'll also be sending this form in a follow-up email to all who attend. Immediately following today's webinar, you will be redirected to our GPRA evaluation. GPRA stands for the Government Performance and Results Act, and stands to ask us to evaluate our events in order to comply with this act and provide improved performance assessment and accountability. This survey asks about your satisfaction with the event and will take less than 10 minutes to complete. We thank you in advance for helping us to improve our program. You will be muted for the duration of this webinar, so if you have questions about the presentation or about the Adobe Connect system, please use the Q&A pod by typing your questions in the field at the bottom. We will address questions at appropriate points during the presentation. We would also like you to be aware that this webinar records participant attention time. If you minimize the webinar or are working in another window, the system will record your participation as inactive, which may be reflected in the number of CEHs received. Today's webinar is presented by Lenny Hayes. Lenny is the owner and operator of Ate Topa Consulting, LLC. He has extensive training in mental health issues that impact the Two-Spirit LGBT community. His lived experience and training have made him a sought-after workshop presenter on Native American historical and intergenerational trauma and how it impacts the Native American community. He received his master's degree in alcohol and drug counseling licensure at the Adler Graduate School in Richfield, Minnesota. Thanks so much for joining us today, Lenny. I'll go ahead and pass things over to you. I see that.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lenny Hayes, and I'm from the Sisseton Wahpeton Oyate. Today I'm going to be presenting on counseling families, significant others. And so let's begin. Okay, where did my screen go? So today, our goals and objectives are to understand the characteristics and dynamics of families, couples, and significant others affected by substance use. Be familiar with and appropriately use models of diagnosis and intervention for families, couples, and significant others, including extended kinship or tribal family structures. Assist families, couples, and significant others to understand the interaction between family system and substance use behaviors. Assist families, couples, and significant others to adopt strategies and behaviors that sustain recovery and maintain healthy relationships. Concepts and foundations. So the key reasons to use family therapy is to build upon family strengths, reduce the impact of chemical dependency. So the key concepts of family therapy The whole system is more than the sum of its parts. Parts of a system are interconnected. Certain rules determine the functioning of a family system. Systems are dynamic, carefully balancing continuity and against change. Many times the answers are in the families. People know their situations and resources. Individual therapy can provide a concentrated focus to help people become more fully themselves. Excuse me. Family therapy believes the dominant forces in our lives are located externally in the family. Family therapy is directed toward changing the organization of the family. Rules, roles, and systems are in place. Perspectives. So first we're going to start out with the Bowenian Perspective. So the Bowenian Perspective is the comprehensive view of human behavior and human problems. Unresolved issues with our original families is the most important. Centered around two counterbalancing life forces, togetherness and individuality, they differentiation, balance thinking and feeling. Experiential Perspective, designed to change families by changing family members. Families are treated as groups of individuals more than as systems. Enhanced sensitivity and expanded awareness are the essential aims of treatment. They focus on interpersonal change and commitment to growth as opposed to problem solving. Structural family therapy is a way of looking at families. The key concepts are every family has a structure revealed when family is in action during family therapy. The structural approach emphasizes the family as a whole as well as between subunits. Family is seen as the client. Strategic Perspective, derived from a combination of Ericksonian hypnotherapy and Batesonian cybernetics, developed a body of powerful procedures. They vary in the specifics of theory and techniques. Cognitive Behavioral Perspective, the counselor is seen as a teacher. They substitute positive controls. Family systems are treated as learned responses, involuntarily acquired and reinforced. They focus on subsystems considered central to the targeted behaviors. So here are the current perspectives. Solution-focused perspective. Pragmatic minimalism, cognitive emphasis, and easily teachable techniques. They de-emphasize on history and underlying pathology. Clients concentrate on solutions rather than problems. They have little to say about how problems arise. They prefer to focus on the future. So, the narrative perspective. Personal narrative and social construction. Narrative truth versus historic truth. Incompatible with systems thinking, it has distanced itself from the concepts and methods of traditional family therapy. Functional perspective. Concerned with the function that the family behavior is designed to achieve. Assumes that most family behaviors are attempts to become more or less intimate. They set up contingency management program to help them get the kind of intimacy they want more directly. Blend strategic and behavioral therapies. The family disease perspective. It encourages people to fight problems with medication, support groups, education, rather than to explore the network of relationships in which their problems were embedded. Multi-systematic and multi-dimensional perspectives resulted out of research with difficult adolescents. A combination of techniques. Actively considering and intervening into the extrafamilial systems in which families are embedded. So now we're going to go into cultural considerations. Definition of family origin. The birth or biological family or any family system instrumental or significant in a client's early development. Cultural considerations also. Increased immigration and contact with the global medium exposed cultures. Is our own worldview healthy? Differences aren't necessarily problematic. There's an overemphasis on ethnicity can lead counselors to exaggerate the difference between themselves and their clients. Ethnicity is a powerful meaning generator. Race and ethnicity includes, so today we're going to be talking about American Indians and sexual orientation. So here's a sort of an idea of the Native American family based on Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota tradition. Now with Native people, we're often very family orientated, so families also include aunts, uncles, cousins. Now, the 7 values of Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota life is to help the people. So one of the things that I would encourage individuals who are attending this webinar to possibly take a look at using a book called Healing the Soul Wound. As we know, our Native people are really impacted by historical and intergenerational trauma. And I've used this book at the beginning of when I first started doing therapy with Native families. So I sort of call it my Bible in regards to how I work with Native families. Now, one of the things that we talk about when working with Native people is that Native people are very spiritual people, so we believe everything has a spirit. And so one of the things that I also know of when doing counseling individuals and families is using our traditional medicines in regards to the healing process. What I often do is usually I will use sage and smudge with the family once we begin doing therapy, and often through the process, because often sometimes it's really difficult to talk about issues that really impacts the family, and so often it's very painful and it's very hard for families to, or individuals to even talk about things that are really impacting them. So for me, when working with families, using our medicines is really important because it helps with the healing process. Excuse me. Now we're going to sort of talk about the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender family networks. LGBT people may create replacement family networks that are made up of individuals who are significant to them, including friends, partners, families of partners, ex-lovers, blood relatives, individuals who have died are no longer an intimate part of the client's life because of addiction, HIV/AIDS, a relationship breakup, or other life events. Now, the reason why we're talking about this is that sometimes often families who individuals who identify as gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender are often turned away by family members, and so often individuals who identify usually will find a family of their own, which includes, what I just had talked about, friends and partners and families. So the stages of family change. So the stages of family change are attainment of sobriety, adjustment to sobriety, and long-term maintenance of sobriety. So some of the family dynamics are previously referred to as codependency. Now, one of the things that I've often seen in working with Native families is that there's a huge issue of codependency. Often it's really hard if you don't address the issue of codependency, because often families or an individual won't take a look at themselves because they're looking at someone else within the family, and often they don't want to talk about things because they're afraid of other family members getting upset with them, or families will often snub the person in regards to like revealing issues that are impacting the family. So it's really important to sort of talk with the family about what it means to be codependent. Often sometimes we use the word dysfunctional families. And often too, I mean, we really have to start like discussing the word enabling, because often we enable our own family members in regards to preventing them from getting the help that they need. And often controls others as they believe they are incapable of taking care of themselves. Often individuals will have a low self-esteem, tendency to deny their own feelings. So these are sort of some of the characteristics of codependency. With the family dynamics continued, they often react in an oversensitive manner, hypervigilance and lower tolerance for stress. They remain loyal to people who do nothing to deserve their loyalty. They feel less able or powerless to influence the family dynamics, and often sometimes domestic violence is a huge issue and plays a huge issue not only with Native families but also LGBTQ individuals. Here's a link that possibly you can take a look at. It's a hour-long story, so if you get a chance, it's a great opportunity to view this this video. Excuse me. So clients' lives as partners and minor children. Similar to maltreatment victims, children believe the abuse is their fault. Children feel guilty. Oh, what happened? I don't know what's going on. The slides are going by themselves.
Yeah, I see that. Can we get the next, will anything come up?
I don't know what's going on there.
Pull it up again. Hold on. Is this where you were?
No, I was back.
Okay.
Here it is. Clients' lives with partner and minor children. Similar to maltreatment victims, children believe the abuse is their fault. Children feel guilty and reasonable for their parents' drinking problem. Trust and intimacy are key child development issues. So when we talk about Native families, it's really important to engage the whole family and not just certain individuals, because often this goes back to codependency, and families will often be more focused on the individual who may be doing a lot of drinking, but not really looking at the impact that it's doing on the family also. So it's really important to really educate the family in regards to codependency. So clients' lives with partners and minor children continued at an increased risk for mood and anxiety disorders. There's an increased rate of divorce, violence, and a need for control in relationships. Some children develop resiliency and adaptability. So currently, right now, I'm working with a couple who are both Native, who come from a very horrific background in regards to trauma, and they're struggling in their relationship. And so having to teach them how to sort of rethink differently from what they're thinking now is really crucial and really important in the process of just helping them to sort of relate to one another in a different but in a healthier way. So adolescents who live with family of origin often will come to violent behavior within a family. Often adolescents will have delinquency issues, psychiatric disorders, risky sexual behaviors, impulse behaviors, neurological impairment, and also developmental impairment. And usually with the development impairment piece is often in regards to FAS. I work with families who really struggle with children who are diagnosed with FAS, so there's a lot of behavioral problems. So it's really important to not only educate yourself, but educate the families in regards to how to handle children who may be diagnosed with FAS. That often becomes a really major problem in regards to family healing. So here are some of the effects of the substance abuse on family structures. Clients live with a partner. Clients lives with a partner and minor children. Client is a part of a blended family. Older client with adult children. Adolescent client and family of origin. So one of the things that I noticed in working with Native families is often that the individuals who are a couple will often have their own children, and there sometimes becomes an issue of maybe a stepfather accepting his current wife's children or vice versa. And so there's a lot of family issues and dysfunction that happen if the issues aren't addressed appropriately and right away. So I see a lot of that happening in Native families. So we're going to talk a little bit about counselor involvement. So here are the 4 levels of counselor involvement with families. There's minimal emphasis on family. Level 2, information and advice. Feelings and support. Brief focused intervention. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the 7 C's. And the 7 C's are defined as the characters, features, the cultural and ethnic factors, contract features, commitment, caring, communication, and conflict resolution. I know one of the things that I really struggle with when working with Indian families or getting them to understand is the conflict resolution. The families really struggle with learning how to resolve conflict within a family. Often sometimes what I've had to do in the past is maybe have a couple sessions with families during the week. Because if that doesn't happen, then situations arise where the family can't handle behavioral issues that may be happening with adolescents or even with adult families. And it's really important too to sort of ask the family to maybe go to a teen support, the adolescents to go to a teen support meeting. So it's really important to talk about these things with families when you're working with them. Character features also included in with the 7 C's is that the character features equals characteristics of a person that tends to be persistent and play a major role in defining that person. The cultural and ethnic factors are variables that form the context in which individuals and couples exist. Surrounding cultural forces shapes relationships. Contract features, a set of implicit and or explicit expectations that partners have concerning how they will define their relationship and relate with one another. An effective contract is explicit, attainable, mutually agreed upon, beneficial to both partners. Commitments. Pledged, devoted, or obligated oneself, being involved with remaining loyal to and maintaining a relationship over time. There are 2 types, stability and quality. The 7 C's also is caring, a person's ability to express behaviors that promote emotional and physical intimacy, expressed through affection and sexual intimacy, mutually pleasing activities, quality time together, and enjoying a supportive and understanding friendship. Communication. Positive daily communications equals relationship success. Negative communications are characterized by expressions of negative feelings, which includes anger and shame. Thus, the message is not heard by the listener. Conflict resolution. Personal skills and interpersonal interaction patterns that promote effective decision making. Solve. Stop, slow down, and see the problem. Outline the options. Look at consequences of options. Vote and evaluate. So here's the summary of the 7 C's. Taking time to think through personal relationship areas helps identify strengths to build upon and goals to strive for. Socially compatible personal values and healthy personality. Love, affection, emotional support, and balance. Loyalty to partnerships with a long-term perspective accompanied by the will to work out problems. Strong family traditions and compatible cultural and ethnic backgrounds. A marital contract that is flexible and a match between expectations and experiences. The use of healthy, effective problem-solving, anger management, and conflict resolution tools. The current perspective in regards to LGBTQ, bisexual, and transgender individuals. A provider's introduction to substance abuse for lesbian and gay, bisexual, and transgender individuals. First edition. So the goal is to learn about the issues that really impact the LGBTQ community in regards to family and couples. So here's some historical perspectives on homosexuality and bisexuality. In the 1940s and 1950s, same-sex sexual attraction and behavior was considered a mental disorder. In 1957, Dr. Evelyn Hooker's landmark study finds gays and lesbians defined as normal. It was in 1973 that the American Psychiatric Association removed homosexuality as a psychopathology from the DSM. So before that, being gay was considered a mental disorder. So here's the terminology. The L stands for lesbian, G stands for gay, B for bisexual, T for transgender, Q is for questioning, Q is also considered queer, intersex, 2S means two-spirit, A means allies. One of the things that I've always had people ask me about is the term queer. Now, growing up on a reservation, the term queer was often a derogatory term. And one of the things that I've noticed with working with individuals who identify as LGBTQ really get really tense when they hear the word queer because of it being a derogatory term. But now today, a lot of the term queer is being embraced by our young people. And the reason why they embrace that term queer is because they don't want to fall under the LGBT. And so queer is a way of not being a part of that LGBT. Now, two-spirit is also a word that was developed by Native Americans who identified as LGBT. But what they didn't want to do was they didn't want to identify as LGBTQ. And so the term two-spirit was derived. It's a Native concept. Often I've had people who identify who are non-Native want to call themselves two-spirit, but I always have to remind them that that's a Native concept and it can only be used by a Native person. So here's some categories and descriptors in regards to LGBTQ. So an individual who identifies as either a male or female, and what also should be in there is transgender, but that's a gender identity too. So the gender and the gender role is the male, female, who identify as masculine or feminine. Sexual orientation includes lesbian, gay, bisexual, heterosexual, or queer. Gender identity falls under transgender, transsexual, male, female, queer, or intersex. So the Kinsey Scale was actually developed in 1948. And overall, what the scale means is defining someone's sexuality. So a person who is sort of figuring out their sexuality will fall under the 0 through 6, which includes exclusively heterosexual, predominantly heterosexual, incidentally homosexual, number 2, heterosexual but more than homosexual, equal heterosexual and homosexual for number 3, number 4, prominently homosexual but more incidentally heterosexual, 5, heterosexual, incidentally heterosexual, exclusively homosexual, number 6. So the coming out process, the term coming out refers to the experiences of lesbians and gay men as they work through and accept a stigmatized identity, transforming a negative self-identity into a positive one. The CAS model was developed in 1979 by Vivian Cass, used to treat gay people as normal in a heterosexual society and in a climate of homophobia instead of treating homosexuality itself as a problem. So stage 1 is the identity confusion. Stage 2 is identity comparison. The stage 3 is identity tolerance. Stage 4 is identity acceptance. Stage 5 is identity pride. Stage 6 is identity synthesis. So I'd really encourage, if you're wanting to know more about this, to research and read up on it, just because we don't have a lot of time to go into depth about the CAS model. And this is the Neeson's 3-phase model for recovery from shame. Phase 1, breaking the silence, parallels the process of coming out. It is important for LGBT individuals to tell their stories and to address their pain of being different in a heterosexual society. So the counselor's tasks would facilitate clients' discussion of hiding LGBT feelings from others, explore emotional costs of hiding and denying one's sexuality. 3, discuss how the client has tried to fit in and at what cost. 4, examine negative feelings of self-blame, feeling bad or sick, and the effect of shaming messages on client. Foster client's ability to be out. So one of the things that I'm currently doing right now is that I co-facilitate a Two-Spirit support group. And what I know from working with the individuals who attend this group is a lot of them really struggle coming from the reservation and coming to an urban community and not really sort of fitting in or trying to fit in. A lot of them come with the feelings of being shunned, and so they really struggle with identity, not only identity as a Two-Spirit person or a Native LGBTQ person, but they also struggle with their Native identity. What I know is that a lot of individuals who grow up on a reservation who identify as Two-Spirit or Native LGBTQ are often shunned from ceremony. So a lot of them have a lot of issues in regards to trying to find spirituality. As we know, before colonization, Two-Spirit people were treated with the utmost respect in our tribal communities. And we know that colonization changed how our tribal communities view Two-Spirit people today. So the ultimate goal in what we're doing is trying to help that individual to celebrate their identity as a Two-Spirit person, or however each tribe identifies individuals from different tribal communities. So for me, like what I like to say is that I'm Dakota, and the culture term that we would use in identifying me as a gay male would be a Winkta. I grew up also with that word being considered derogatory, and so what I'm helping to do to help others is to take their cultural term and embrace that cultural term and not look at it as being a derogatory term. So the whole process of this support group is to help individuals to heal from life experiences, which can include trauma from childhood, adult trauma. We know that there's a lot of issues that really impacts the Two-Spirit community in regards to violence of all forms. And so just creating a space of safety and healing is the ultimate goal of this support group that I co-facilitate. Phase 2 in the Nissan's 3-phase model is establishing perpetrator responsibility allows clients to understand their struggle in the context of societal discrimination and prejudice. So the counselor's task is to facilitate focusing and managing anger constructively and not destructively. Help client understand and accept negative self-image as socio-cultural and not personal. Counteract clients' experience of heterosexism and homophobia by role modeling and by providing a treatment environment that is empowering for LGBT persons, not stigmatization. Nissan's 3-phase model, phase 3, reclaiming personal power, involves improving self-concept, self-esteem, and self-confidence. So the counselor's task is to facilitate clients' self-concept and self-efficiency, identify and change negative messages to affirmations, recognize and release shame, and develop a positive affirming spirituality, integrate public and private identities, build and support networks, and connect to the community. So, taking a family history. So for that one, for me, that would be simply assessing the family. Possibly what a counselor can do too is use a genogram to get to know the family or the individual. Really sort of start to understand the issues that are impacting the family and the individual. So, you know, some of the questions that you can ask the individual is, what were the rules of the family system? Was there a history of physical, emotional, spiritual, or sexual trauma? Were all family members expected to behave or evolve in a certain way? What were the family expectations in regards to careers, relationships, appearance, status, or environment? In general, was sex ever discussed? LGBT clients. Was anyone else in the family acknowledged to be or suspected of being a lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender individual? Another question is, how did the family respond to other individuals coming out or being identified as LGBTQ? Is the client out to his or her family? If the client is out, what types of response did he or she receive? So these are really important questions to ask individuals and families. Like I said, a lot of my experience has been working with Native families and also working with LGBTQ individuals. I know that, you know, either way, both of these are a real struggle for both parties coming, either heterosexual or LGBTQ. So it's really important. I love doing genograms because that helps me to understand the individual and the whole family dynamics. But it also helps the client to sort of look at the issues that are really impacting the family. So here are some guidelines for working with LGBT families. Demonstrate support and understanding for the life partners and significant others. Be sensitive to the individual self-identification. Be sensitive to the diversity and variety of relationships in the LGBT community. demonstrate support and understanding for the life partners and significant others, be sensitive to the individual self-identification, be sensitive to the diversity and variety of relationships in the LGBTQ community. So one of the things that I like to talk about too is sometimes what we often do is that we assume that an individual identifies as an LGBTQ person, but really we should be asking that person in how they identify. One of the things that I usually say is that when we do that, we often take away that power of the individual in how they want to identify. So simply just asking a question, how do you identify? It gives that individual the ability to take sort of power and control of who they are and who they want to be. One of the things I always remind people who work with LGBTQ individuals is to really educate yourself in regards to how, for instance, a Native person, what is their cultural thinking in regards to an individual that comes from their tribe. We're not all the same, we're different, but we have similarities. So it's really important to know that. You know, it's really hard sometimes, you know, for individuals who come from the reservation. They don't really know how to identify themselves because of a lot of fear and a lot of being shamed, cut down. So it's really important, you know, to really create a safe place for that person to identify who they are. We know that a lot of the individuals that comes to the support group that I co-facilitate, there's a lot of trauma, and helping them to sort of take a look at that trauma and encouraging them to work through that trauma, because if they don't work through that trauma, often creates a lot of issues in regards to alcohol and drug abuse. I see a lot of individuals suffer with sex addiction. I see a lot of individuals who struggle with being in relationships because they don't know what a healthy relationship is. So it's teaching them how to be in a healthy relationship. Often, one of the things that we know is that individuals who grow up in an environment where there's a lot of abuse will often seek relationships that are abusive because that's basically what they're used to. They don't know that that they can be in a healthy relationship if they know what a healthy relationship is. So it's sort of teaching them differently than what they're used to. So here are some myths and facts about LGBT parents. Myth: lesbians and gay men do not have children. Fact: the American Bar Association estimates that at least 6 to 10 million daughters and sons of lesbian, gay, and bisexual parents in the United States. Here in Minneapolis, we have a lot of Native Two-Spirit LGBTQ people who do have families, and they're amazing. They really thrive as good parents. I know of a Native lesbian family. They do wonderful with their children and their community leaders. So we know that, you know, that a healthy LGBTQ Native family can really thrive if given the opportunity. Excuse me. Here's another myth. Children raised by LGBT parents are likely to turn out to be LGBT themselves. The fact is that published studies have established that children raised by gay or lesbian parents are no more likely to grow up gay or lesbian than the other children. This was a study done in 1992. Myth: Children who are in contact with gay men or lesbian faces are being sexually abused. Facts. Statistics indicate that 90% of all children, statistics indicate that 90% of all children sexual abuse cases involve a heterosexual male perpetrator. So one of the things that I also discuss is sexual violence against men and boys. And one of the things that is often true is that the perpetrator often identifies, it's a high percentage that individual identifies as a heterosexual. So it's not true that a person who maybe identify as an LGBTQ or two-spirit who has been sexually abused does not often always become the perpetrator. Myth. Gay men and lesbians have unsustainable relationships that make them inadequate parents. Fact. A large number of gay men and lesbians can and do enjoy long, stable, and satisfying relationships. So, like I said previously, not all individuals who identify as LGBTQ or two-spirit are not always in unstable families, but are in stable families. Here's another myth. The only acceptable home for a child contains a mother and father who are married to each other. Fact. The reality of today is that the traditional definition of the married heterosexual couples with 1 to 5 children is only one of many types of families that children grow and thrive in. Myth. Children raised by a gay or lesbian couple will not have proper male and female role models. Fact. The research suggests that children of LGBTQ families are exposed to more people of the opposite sex than many children of straight parents, and even when children are not, there is no evidence to suggest that they are harmed. Individual and organizational mission. Because LGBT communities are underserved and often invisible, it is important that treatment providers make a commitment to serving the population and incorporate the commitment into the organization's mission statement, philosophy, and service literature. Examine all aspects of a program for overt and covert expressions and perception of heterosexual biases. Make a commitment at every level of the program, from the board of directors to the direct line staff, to design and deliver services in a manner sensitive to the needs of LGBT individuals. So I'm the former chairman of the board of the Minnesota Two-Spirit Society, and one of the things that happened in 2015 at a powwow, there was a native lesbian couple who were out on the dance floor. And what was happening was that they were honoring a heterosexual couple who had been married for 15 years. And the MC had asked the lesbian couple to leave the floor. He made the statement, keep it traditional, no boy-on-boy action, or no girl-on-girl action. And so what happened was I and another board member's phone blew up because there was a lot of anger that was addressed in regards to the statements that he made. So one of the things that I did as a board member was, and also with the other board members, is that we asked to have a meeting with the executive director of the organization that was hosting this powwow. What they had done was they had rented the facility out to this other organization that was putting on this powwow. And so what she did was she asked I and the board members to sit down with her and to develop a policy in regards to the protection and safety and non-discrimination of two-spirit people and native LGBTQ people. And so they were one of the first organizations to pass this policy in Minneapolis. And so with that, we had 3 other Native organizations that followed her in regards to coming up with a policy to protect Two-Spirit people. So I'm really proud and happy about that because that's one of the things that hadn't happened here in Minneapolis. And so that's one of the things that I like to discuss is that once individuals who identify as Two-Spirit or Native LGBTQ, once they hear that, they feel accepted, they feel comfortable in going into places. One of the things I always remind individuals too that or organizations is that even if they just posted just a small thing on a window saying safe space, that gives the individual who identifies as LGBTQ or Native Two-Spirit, lets them know that they're in a safe place and that they don't have to feel uncomfortable or unsafe. So I really promote and ask organizations to do that so that individuals can feel safe when they go out in the community. We know that there's a lot of violence that occurs in the Native LGBTQ community. And so what we need to do as individuals and as a community and as organizations is that we really need to promote safety because we know that there's a lot of deaths that occur and a lot of violence that happens in the community. So I'm going to finish with the presentation summary. So what I went over today was the history, concepts, current and predominant models, cultural considerations, codependency, effects of substance abuse on family systems, and the 2 families that I focused more on today was the Native American community and LGBTQ community. I hope that this presentation was helpful in some way. Webinars are really hard in regards to talking about issues that really impact both Native communities and also LGBTQ communities. And so I want to thank you. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask and I will answer as quickly as I can. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lenny. Really appreciate your time today. People feel free to enter questions in the Q&A box. In the meantime, I'm going to kind of shift over to our final slides, but do feel free if you have any questions for Lenny to take a moment and write those. I know he'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. And again, I want to thank you so much for presenting today, Lenny. Final slide. So, no questions? Okay, so please stay online as we start to close out this webinar so you can be redirected to our survey. The survey doesn't automatically pop up. Please watch for my email follow-up as it will include a link to the survey as well as a link to a recording of this webinar. Please check out, again, our other upcoming webinars in this series, as well as our American Indian and Alaska Native Behavioral Health series, which takes place on the first Wednesday of each month. We always welcome suggestions on topics or speakers, so feel free to give us some suggestions in the Q&A pod or by contacting K-Trans at the email or phone number provided on the slide. So that's kate/trans@uiowa.edu, 319-541-7032. Thank you again so much, everyone, for your time today and participating in the session. We hope you've enjoyed the presentation and we look forward to your feedback. Thank you so much.